Hi guys. No, um, jeez. Sorry I haven't done a video in a while. Um, Part of that is because I was trying to plan what my next video should be. Um, but I finally figured out. And this video is going to be something different. Something different that I'm probably going to be doing every once in a while. And in this video, I'll be talking to you about the films of Steven Spielberg. Yes. I'll do this every once in a while, where I'll make a video about films of a certain director, talk about the films of a certain director that I own. Now, personally, I do not own all of Spielberg's movies. I don't. I only own like 10 Spielberg movies, but they're all good, of course. And personally, I think Spielberg is the greatest filmmaker ever, just because everybody knows him and that he's incredibly talented. And I always looked up to him as a kid, and admired his movies. But yeah, we'll be talking about the films of Steven Spielberg, from Jaws to Lincoln. Alright, let's get started. First up we have Jaws. Now, I talked about Jaws in my all-time favorite movies video. You can check that out if you want. And the reason I love this movie so much, and I just saw it for the first time last year, and I love it so much now. And the reason this is on my favorite movies list is because this is one of Spielberg's best movies, and what makes this movie so good is that the shark looks incredibly real. Incredibly real. The music is intense. John Williams has composed all of Spielberg's movies, and he's a master. And the fact that you don't see the shark until halfway through the movie, and that just builds up the suspense of what's killing these people. What I'm saying now is exactly what I said in my favorite movies video about this. But anyway, Jaws, yes, is a true masterpiece of suspense, comedy, and adventure. It's not horror, it's just suspense, comedy, and adventure. And it's all done very well. And this is the brand new, restored version of the DVD. So I will give Jaws a friggin' epic rating. Yes. Love it. Incredibly well made. Alright, next up we have probably my favorite Spielberg movie. And that is... Dun 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 dun. Yep. Raiders of the Lost Ark. I've talked about the Indiana Jones movies, and I don't need to say more other than this movie inspired me so much, and I've loved Indiana Jones ever since I was 10 years old when I first started watching the movies. And I remember going to the theater to see Crystal Skull, but even then I hated it. But anyway, this is not my favorite of all of them. The Last Crusade is my favorite, but this is still fantastic. This has a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. 95%. That's incredible. And I can see why, because this movie is masterfully crafted and well made. And just a great movie in every way. Action, comedy, adventure, it's all there. And also, as usual, great music by John Williams. And Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones is probably his best role. And, yeah, just fantastic. I'll give Raiders of the Lost Ark a freaking epic. Alright, next up, we have another classic. Dun, 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 dun. E.T. Absolutely fantastic, incredibly funny and heartwarming. And what I mean by heartwarming is that this relationship between this boy and this alien is so interesting. But a fun fact about this movie is that Spielberg said that this movie was never about a boy and an alien. It was originally about a divorced family or something. And then he had this idea for an alien movie, and he combined it with those things, and it made for a great movie and classic and one of the greatest movies of all time. Spielberg has probably made most of the greatest movies of all time, of our culture, of our history, and this is one of them. And yes, E.T., great movie. Wait, let me show you something interesting about this edition of the movie. You open that up. That is the 2002 restored version of the movie with some CGI alterations in there for the anniversary of the movie. But then, if you flip to this side, on that disc is the bonus features and the original theatrical release from 1982, which I have not watched, but yeah. Yeah, great movie, very, very funny and heartfelt, and Spielberg is a true master, and to me the things that stand out in Spielberg's movies are the comedy and the stories. He does those perfectly, and Spielberg has a great sense of humor. I would love to meet Spielberg so much, I really would. I would just say to him, dude, you are a master, you are the greatest filmmaker ever, I admire your films so much, I want to be a filmmaker. You know what? I'm gonna write a letter to Spielberg, telling him that I'm making an Indiana Jones movie and that how much I admire his work. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. But yeah, E.T. I will give E.T. a frickin' epic. In other words, that's the highest grade I can give a movie. Okay. Next up we have Spielberg's most controversial movie, Temple of Doom. Now, what I mean when I say controversial is that when this first came out, people didn't like it because they said, oh, it's inappropriate for kids. This movie was not aimed towards kids, believe me. Why were people saying that? That doesn't make sense. Anyway, I personally don't hate this movie. I love it. Just like I love the original 3 and hate Crystal Skull. Even though this is not my favorite out of the indie movies, I still love it. I would give this like an A-. But the thing that really bugs me about this movie is Kate Capshaw. She was extremely annoying. But, interesting fact, she ended up marrying Spielberg. Yeah. And also, another fun fact, this is not a sequel to Indiana Jones. This is a prequel to Raiders. It is. Because this takes place a year before Raiders. I don't know if you know that. But anyway, Temple of Doom, awesome. And I love the fact that it's so different from the first movie. Yeah, Temple of Doom I will give a frickin' awesome. Yes. Alright, next up we have probably one of Spielberg's most underrated movies, I guess you could say. I don't love it extremely, but it's still okay, I guess. And that is Empire of the Sun. This is actually the very first movie Christian Bale ever starred in. He was about 12 or 13 when he was in this. Yeah. Empire of the Sun is about a little boy who lives in China with his parents, and he gets separated from his parents when Japan invades China, and then some maintenance guys pick him up, and they eventually get taken to a Japanese prison camp. But this is a good movie, but not one of my favorite Spielberg movies. It's good, but I just think it's a little too overlong at times. I mean, how long is this movie? $152 this is. So that's about 2 hours or something. I think that's as long as Dark Knight Rises is. Anyway, Empire of the Sun, not one of my favorite Spielberg movies, but still good. I just have problems with the pacing. Other than that, pretty good. And a great start to Christian Bale's movie career, because before this he just did TV. And I will give Empire of the Sun a freaking good. Not great, but good. Okay, next up we have my favorite Indiana Jones movie, Last Crusade. I don't need to say more other than Sean Connery makes this movie awesome. And this is probably the funniest out of all the Indiana Jones movies. That's why I love it. But yeah, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I'll give this a friggin' epic. Alright, next up we have the movie that I think everybody knows Spielberg for, other than Jaws or Raiders, and that is Jurassic Park. Now, yeah, everybody knows Spielberg for this, but let me tell you something you might be surprised by. This is probably my least favorite Spielberg movie. I know that's weird because so many people love Jurassic Park, but the reason I think that is because I see this movie every day almost on TV. It's so annoying. I know it's a good movie, but come on. And I just can't really get into it as much as the other Spielberg movies that I own. I'm not saying it's a bad movie. No, it's not. But I'm just saying it's not one of my favorites, you know? But yeah, so I will give Jurassic Park a freaking okay. So-so-ish. Okay, almost done. Next up we have Minority Report. Now, I have only seen about like the first 10 minutes or so of this. I turned it off like after the first 10 minutes because I didn't like it that much. So I cannot give you a rating for this because I haven't seen the whole thing. But I'll try to watch it some other time. But yeah. Oh God. Guess what we have next? I agree with every other fanboy who hates this movie. What a disappointment this movie was. But I bought it for some reason. The reason I hate this movie is because it does not... I don't even count this as an Indiana Jones movie. It does not feel like Indiana Jones whatsoever. There are multiple things I hate about this movie. One, the biggest problem I have with this movie is Shia LaBeouf. Why in God's name is he in this? Because he was popular for Transformers at the time. Ugh. Transformers sucked. All of them do. Michael Bay is a talentless asshole. But anyway, off topic. What I hate about this movie is that it does not feel like an Indiana Jones movie whatsoever. It completely lost the spirit of what made the original so good. And that's probably because this came out 2 decades after Last Crusade. Way too late, they decided to make this movie. And I don't blame Spielberg for the failure of this movie. I mostly blame Shia LaBeouf and George Lucas. That's who I blame for the failure of this movie. Especially Lucas. I mean, I don't hate Lucas completely much, but most of the failure of this movie was his fault. I mean, it was Lucas's idea to put aliens in this. It was his idea. And the dialogue is completely cheesy, and especially Shia LaBeouf's dialogue. He's such a freaking idiot in this movie. He's just a freaking numbskull. And Cate Blanchett was terrible as the villain. Which, by the way, why in God's name do they have to get a woman to play a villain? I'm not sexist, but why? That is not Indiana Jones. Every actor in this movie is bad. I'm just going to say that right now. Even Harrison Ford. I hate to admit it, but even he was bad in this. And that's not his fault. It's probably just the guy who wrote the script, David Co-op. It was probably his fault. But, oh my God. Yeah. Even he was bad in this. And so was Karen Allen. I hate to admit it, but yeah, she was. I have nothing against the actors, but I'm just saying, it's terrible. Shia LaBeouf I hate though, but yeah, you have to admit this lost the spirit of what made the original so good. But the only good thing about it is the opening scene with Indy in Area 51. That's the only good scene. Other than that, the movie just went completely downhill. And so freaking stupid. So I will give Kingdom of the Crystal Skull a friggin' poo rating. Yes, friggin' poo is what I like to call this movie. Even though there are tiny things about it that are good, even when I saw this when I was 10, I still hated it. I pray they do. I pray they do not make a fifth. Okay, one more movie. Lincoln. I love this movie. Now let me clear up something. I'm a huge presidential history buff. Now usually when I see movies that are about presidents, I'm very picky about is it historically accurate. Well, this movie is 100% accurate to the time period. 100% accurate. That's probably because Spielberg researched Lincoln for about 12 years. But incredible acting, incredible writing, and to me this just got the personality of Abraham Lincoln down completely, of what people said about him when he was alive. And Daniel Day-Lewis's performance is flawless. He deserved the Oscar for this. I mean, when I saw the trailer for this, I said to myself, he doesn't look anything like Lincoln. But then when I saw the movie, I said to myself, it's almost as if Lincoln came back to life thanks to Lewis's performance. But yeah, absolutely fantastic acting, fantastic directing. Spielberg still has his talent. I hope Spielberg keeps making movies until he dies, because he is the best filmmaker ever. And this shows he still has his talent. An absolute masterpiece this movie is. Yeah, 100% historically accurate. Excellent. I will give Lincoln a friggin' epic. Alright, that is my overview of the Spielberg movies that I own. I don't own all Spielberg's movies, but those are the ones I own. So, next time I'll do some other video. Bye.